President Cyril Ramaphosa expected to host his German Chancellor, that's Olaf Scholz, on an official visit today. Now, Germany is South Africa's second largest trading partner. The war in Ukraine expected to at least dominate some of the discussions. And let's get more detail on exactly that. We speak to Peter Fabricius. He is a commentator and indeed a journalist who has already written about this particular meeting. Peter, good morning to you. And the top line of your piece is German Chancellor Scholz to ask Ramaphosa how he can remain non-aligned on Ukraine. Just how top of mind do you think the issue in Ukraine is going to be in this particular state visit?
Yeah, I think it is important. It won't wreck it, but as I also wrote in that piece. But I was speaking to the embassy, the German embassy, and also, last week they had their national security and foreign policy advisor to the Chancellor who was here, and quite an interesting position they're taking. It's all very well to be non-aligned, but is this more important really than to stand up for values which they regard Germany and South Africa as having in common? I mean, respect for territorial integrity, the rule of law, basically, an international order that is governed by the rule of law, not by force and might. So that's a point that they clearly want to put across.
Well, let's talk about that non-aligned movement. I think the last time people would have heard about that particular position when it comes to global matters, that would have been in the 20th century, somewhere there. What is the non-aligned, or what was the non-aligned movement?
Yeah, this is the point that you make that's relevant. That the non-aligned movement was created in 1955, I think it was, in Bandung. So there's a bunch of sort of countries of the South, I guess you could say, who thought that they didn't want to get caught up in the Cold War. They didn't want to be on the side of the West. They didn't want to be on the side of the Soviet Union. So they decided that they'd be non-aligned. Now, obviously, the difficulty, I suppose, that Germany and other countries are having is what is the pertinence of that today? This is not the Cold War, although it has some of the features of the Cold War. But they're really saying that this is about much more than about being aligned or non-aligned in a big global contest, is standing up for values. As the German Chancellor will presumably tell President Ramaphosa, the values of a global order that is governed by the rule of law.
Yeah. Let's talk about what South Africa's interests are when it comes to its relationship with Germany. And top of mind, as we have been saying all morning, is that some of what is going to dominate discussions is the energy situation that South Africa finds itself in. It's more the energy insecurity. Where might Germany come in there?
Germany is playing a role with other European countries and the US and so on, and trying to help South Africa to make a just transition, as it's called, capital J, capital T, from coal to renewable energy. So that's the one big project they're involved with. They put up something like $8 billion, I think it is, in grants and loans and so on, amongst them to help South Africa out of that tight corner. How that impacts on our immediate energy needs is not quite clear. I mean, I guess it's not really so much about answering the immediate needs as it is about long-term, getting away from coal. But maybe it will help because clearly our coal-fired power stations are seemingly failing one by one, whether that's because of wear and tear or sabotage or whatever. So, but I don't think there's any immediate solution in offering that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
There is one thing that the Chancellor, and I think President Ramaphosa will do this afternoon, going to Sasol, where they're going to launch technological research into sustainable aviation fuel, which is also helpful, but obviously not a sort of short-term solution to blackouts.
Let's wrap up the conversation, Peter, about while the Russia-Ukraine conflict may not color the South Africa-German relationship all that much, and that, I suppose, will be demonstrated by Olaf Scholz reaching out and extending an invitation to Ramaphosa to attend the G7 summit, which will be held in Berlin. What is that likely to signify?
Yeah, that's what I was told. I see that's not in the statement that was put out by the South African side, but that's what I heard from the German embassy. Well, what it signifies is, as with other big Western countries like the US and so on, and Britain, that even though they're not at all happy with South Africa's position on Ukraine, they do acknowledge at the end of the day that South Africa is their most important partner in Africa, not only economically but politically. It's a democracy, which is going to be part of the argument about Ukraine as well. Shouldn't democracies be standing together? And so it's not. I mean, the position on Ukraine is not big enough to break that kind of relationship, which is too important for these countries.
Peter Fabricius, thank you very much for your time. He is a journalist and indeed a commentator, particularly on global issues.